Without code, the web is non-existent. Yet code conjures up images of socially awkward geeks in glasses glued to their screens, or lines and lines of unintelligible letters and numbers scrolling past us. The notion of coding is enough to strike fear into many a creative's heart, but it doesn't need to be that way. Let's look to a definition. Code, when used as a noun, is a rule for converting a piece of information into another form or representation, not necessarily of the same type. Pieces of information can be letters, words, phrases, gestures. Form or representation is merely converting one sign into another sign. This is a concept explored in semiotics. We are always coding when we communicate with one another. I encode my thoughts into a message to you. You decode the words I speak and the tone and inflection in my voice when you receive my message to understand it. And designers convert information into other forms or representations all of the time. The icons we design, the photos and illustrations we place with text in a specific typeface and layout. Visual language is a form of code. There are many codes we use in our daily lives, like traffic lights, where each color, red, yellow, green, and their placement on the fixture means stop, caution, or go. Or barcodes. These are codes of our consumer lives. You can't read it per se, but it does define how much you pay when checking out. And there are codes in specialized fields, like musical notation for musicians and composers. Knowing that this is a quarter note and this is a half note allows the whole orchestra to play together in time, even with different parts. Flag signals at the airport allow the ground crew to safely guide a plane into and out of the gate. Visual code is essential because the jet engines are too loud. Pilots wouldn't be able to hear verbal feedback from the tarmac. Codes have also played an important role in our history. Morse code was used to communicate via the telegraph before the invention of the telephone. An operator would tap a message down a wire to the next operator, who would transcribe the message and have it delivered to the correct person. Every letter has a sequence of short and long dashes, where A is dot dash and B is dash dot dot dot. During World War II, the Germans had encrypted all of their communications with the Enigma machine. Only when Allied mathematicians and codebreakers cracked the Enigma code did the tide of the war shift. Allies were then able to translate the intercepted messages and know what the Nazis were planning. There's also a verb form of the word code that brings us closer to our user experience concerns. Code is to write rules for a computer program. We tend to call writing code for computers programming, which is an artificial language designed to communicate instructions to a machine, particularly a computer that is both human readable and computer executable. Artificial language is important in the definition because programmers need to be fluent in the language that tells the computer what to do. Each programming language, yes, there are many, has its own set of commands and syntax that require expertise to read and write in ways that a computer will respond. Early programming happened through sets of punch cards that held the instructions. But over time, programming languages have become more human readable, but still require considerable expertise to command, from BASIC to C++ to Python and Angular. On the web, there are a number of important programming languages, but first we need to understand the types of web work. Web development is divided into two parts, front-end development and back-end development. Front-end is concerned with what is delivered up into the browser, the visual style, the layout, the navigation. This is where designers generally play a primary role. Programming languages associated with front-end development are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery. Backend development is the engine behind what is seen. There are massive databases, complex code that allows you to log in securely or run queries, and processing as you do your work online. Backend programmers use Java, Python, SQL, PHP, Angular, and .NET. So let's look at 3 of the languages that are important for web designers. First is HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language. Hypertext is a fancy term for links. Markup language is a type of code that uses tags to display a document. So when we put it all together, HTML is a coding language that web browsers use to interpret and display the content of web pages. HTML consists of elements or building blocks that define the structure of the page. The second language is CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets. Style sheets determine the style or presentation of a web page. This includes colors, fonts, spacing, and layout. The term cascading refers to how styles are applied from general to specific. CSS can also control some animation and reformatting of web page content for display on different devices. The third language is JS, or JavaScript. JavaScript is an object-oriented programming language that adds interactive functionality to web pages. JS reacts to events, changes content, validates input, and communicates with the server. So anytime you fill out a form or click on a lightbox or slideshow, that's JavaScript. Designers typically rely on already developed JavaScript functions and libraries, known as jQuery, to pull this type of functionality into their sites. All 3 languages work together. HTML is the structure and display of content, CSS brings the style, and JavaScript adds the functionality. As a designer on web projects, you don't technically need to know how to code. For small projects, using a website building platform like Wix, Squarespace, WordPress, or Weebly is acceptable. Medium-sized projects, you might work with 1 to a few programmers. And on massive projects, you'll likely be part of a design team working with an even larger team of programmers. So while you don't need to know how to code, understanding how the code works is extremely helpful. Code is the structure that underpins and makes your design visible to users. Knowing what is and isn't possible through the programming gives you valuable information and insight to do your work. Understanding code also allows you to partner with programmers. Too often there can be an ugly divide when self-important designers demand programmers deliver their designs pixel perfect, when it's not even possible in the code. I've seen this happen. Believe me, mutual respect, born out of a baseline understanding of each other's profession strengths, is preferable for the working relationship, the end product, and the user. Today, we learned about the definition for code when used as a noun, a rule for converting a piece of information into another form or representation, not necessarily of the same type. And code when used as a verb, to write rules for a computer program. We discussed types of web development, front-end and back-end, where the designer is part of the front-end team. And we talked about the 3 core programming languages for web design: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Our takeaway today: understanding code provides structural insight for designers and better partnership with programmers. Go embrace code this week.